Mi gente, you already know who it is. It's Danny Limelight. And I need all of you to subscribe to According to Wiz podcast on Facebook, YouTube, and all other platforms.
What's good, party people? This is According to Woods, and I have the honor and privilege of having, she is an Afterbuzz TV host. She is an Emmy-nominated producer, and my goodness, she hosts one of my favorite YouTube channels there is, Women's Wrestling Talk on YouTube, and you should subscribe right now. She is the one and only Emily Mae.
Aw, hi! I'm so happy to be here.
Well, glad to have you, and because it's a fun one. I mean, we kind of talked air. We almost, through our mutual friend Flobo Boyce, we almost became coworkers.
I know, we're almost little Afterbuzz buddies.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's funny, I've had TK on previously. I think last week. Had George Hermosa, and he has the record of the longest guest. He made the intent that he was going to be one Chris Kloss from XPW's record, which was I think about 3.5, and we beat that by 2 hours in the middle of the night. But also another after buddy, right?
Mm-hmm. He's like a wrestling encyclopedia. I swear. I wish I knew just like a fraction of what he knew. Sometimes I just want to like take his brain and transplant it and just like grab some of that knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want his awesome hairstyle. And
like he rocks it.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you guys don't know, you guys should check out the Wrestling Chatter on YouTube as well. You might even see this face for radio on it. So I'm just saying. But I mean, Em, you've done a lot of stuff in, seemingly short time, but definitely it's been an arduous journey. But like, how did you start? I mean, how did you start? Whether it be production or wrestling or both?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting process, and journey and long journey, and I studied theater in school and so in college. And so I did all the performing arts. I did everything I could from tap dancing to lighting design to set design to pretty much anything I could do in the arts. I was like, I'm going to do it. And I did production and producing. It kind of coincided with that because I always kind of was producing things. Even my parents and my mom as a kid, I would produce little plays for Thanksgiving, and like my family would not want to do it, and I would like force everyone to like do stuff. So I was always kind of like the little kind of puppet master that was like putting on all of these things. So even as a kid, I was like trying to organize and get people together. And, and I was a singer as well. So I studied voice, and I always wanted to like be on stage and, and perform for an audience, and I did children's theater to opera, to musical theater, to, avant-garde stuff. And I made the decision to kind of continue producing and production managing and kind of pursued that as a career for a really long time. And along that process, during grad school, I was studying and, doing my thing, trying to get through the really, really hard program. And, I always did little shows and things like that on the side. And my boyfriend, who's now my husband, we've been together, 14 years, something crazy. Next year's 14. So like a really long time, right? And he is like the ultimate wrestling fan as a kid. And he said, you need to watch wrestling because wrestling is theater, but with athletes. And you have all the lights, you have the set design, you have the storylines, you have you have backstories of characters, and you're going to love it, right? And I knew about wrestling, but I wasn't like a diehard fan at that time. And I remember I watched our first date was literally watching wrestling with his friends. And he was really surprised there was a second date. But I actually really liked it. I loved it, you know. Like the Undertaker was like the first entrance that I fell in love with and was like, oh, this is something I need to be a part of in whatever capacity. And so he started training as a wrestler. And if you don't know who he is, he started as the hobo, and he also was an Afterbuzzer. So he started as the hobo, and now he's Robert Baines. And so I started as his valet, his manager, when he started training wrestling. And that was so much fun. And we did crazy stuff that, that I feel like you can't really get away with so much, you know, now. But it was fun to do that together. It was really fun to like go through that process together. And so I started doing that for a few years with him. And I took a little break because I was going into like full-time producing, full-time, you know, for theater, for live events, for all this stuff, right? So I focused on that, and I did some shows and things like that on the side, like theater shows, not wrestling shows. And so in the last, like, you know, few years, I was talking to, you know, my husband was like, I really want to get back into it. And like, we have a really good partnership where we're very creative. We're two very creative people. So we always, no matter whatever journey he was going through with whatever character development, whatever show development, like we're always talking about it. We always talked about whatever he was going to, like, he would bounce ideas off of me. So like we were always, so like wrestling has always been like ingrained in our relationship and ingrained in our life. And sometimes we have to like take a step back and say, hey, all right, we talked a lot about stuff. We were very like, very business oriented of like, okay, wrestling. All right, what's the next step? Like, what are we doing? And then sometimes I'm like, all right, let's breathe. Let's breathe a little bit, figure out, all right, it's okay. So like then I, you know, and I was like a guest host on Afterbuzz a couple times before I went like full Afterbuzz official. And, you know, and I had friends who, you know, we always had wrestling nights where we talked to, you know, had watch-alongs and talked through everything. And, you know, and I decided, I was like, hey, like I miss talking about it. I miss having a kind of like a creative voice. And I feel like I have a unique perspective because I'm from production and I'm also, you know, on air. So I see it from two perspectives. And I feel like I have like a well-rounded kind of voice and kind of perspective in that. So, so I just kind of got more involved in the last few years. And so I'm doing a bunch of stuff now, and it's exciting. That was like a long answer, but
no, I love it. And you know, I think it's awesome. One, that you always were producing things as a child, as a youth.
totally,
right?
like innate, like it was like totally ingrained in me. And like my dad's a producer, and so I feel like it was like the apple didn't fall very far. And you know, he was like producing films and TV and stuff like that. And I never even like, you know, as a kid, you don't really care what your parents do. You're like, whatever, like, I don't care. And then as I slowly, you know, grew up into middle school, high school, college, I was like, oh, this is something I'm really good at. And I have like a really good like way to vision and envision something to completion. And like, I feel like not a lot of people know how to not only implement, but like make not only your vision come true, but like other people's visions come true.
100%.
Yeah.
And it's weird, right? Because I love that you talked about like, now I know where it comes from. Like your dad was a producer.
Yeah.
So I was going to be like, well, in terms of like producing stuff and, you know, stuff for holidays and kind of like having this almost like the secret talent or whatever, like, did you know that you could probably parlay that into something a little bit more lofty, especially here in LA? But then I'm like, no, your dad, you know this.
Yeah, I mean, I had no idea. Like, it really wasn't until probably college did I realize, oh, I've been doing this for a really long time. Like, I remember, so like he's going to be embarrassed I'm telling this story, but our first date, we were actually 15 years old, and we went to our first homecoming dance together. So like we go way back, right? And I produced the homecoming parade and like football game for that the night before. So like the parade was the night before and the dance was like that Saturday. And like I still talk about that because he's like, yeah, you're the same person you were back in high school. He's like, maybe you're a little bit more like a little bit more organized. You kind of have your stuff together a little bit more. But he's like, you're literally the same person. He remembers that I was literally organizing all this stuff. And it's just so funny when you reflect on stuff like that, and then you connect it to like what you're doing now, and you see, oh yeah, I've been doing it a long time. and like what you said, like you can really bring it to anything that you really want to do. Like I'll talk through scenarios with him of shows of like, okay, here's the card I want, and this is what I see. And it's like, say there's like a theme of the evening, like I could see it in my head. And so I do that all the time because you never know when the opportunity might present itself where I'm the main producer and I can come in and like make a show happen.
Oh man, I love it. Especially considering the fact like my favorite wrestler. I mean, the reason why I do anything combat sports was, I mean, Savage versus Bret Hart, 1987 Saturday night's main event. And the story that they told, and I can call the match in my head, and like interferences from Jim the Anvil, I believe even like Danny Davis and Jimmy Hart and what have you. I mean, just it told a beautiful story, right? But that got me involved. Like, oh, cool things happen, because I think I was like watching Tom and Jerry before that, right? Like,
yeah,
right. And then I was just like, oh, like at that moment, like Tom and Jerry, Superman, all of the things of the day. I mean, like even being born in San Francisco during, the golden years of like Montana and Jerry Rice and everything. And I kind of sidestepped, and I was like, I didn't give a damn about football or cartoons or whatever. It was just like anything in a ring and then later cage. So when I saw like a Mike Tyson fighting in a cage, or Tommy the Hitman Hearns, or Oscar De La Hoya, and then later Hoist Gracie or Dan Severn. If not for Dan Severn, I don't know. I mean, that was the first time I'd heard of Ultimate Fighting, right? When he walks out onto, I think it was Shotgun Saturday Night with like 3 belts, all of them non-WWF belts, and flanked by Jim Cornette. And when Jim Ross is like, oh, that's Dan Severn, cage fighting or Ultimate Fighting champion, I was like, what is this? And I literally dragged my dad to like Hollywood Video. It's like, Dad, we got to get this tape.
Get that rental.
And he was just like, no. He looks at the cover and he's just like, nope, we're not doing that at all. It's too violent. So I marched my little narrow butt into the action section and got like a Charles Bronson Death Wish with him with this huge gun, right? And I'm all like, okay, Dad, it's one of these. And he's like, okay, get your Ultimate Fighting tape and whatever. And when I saw Dan Severn do the same thing to like literal like sumo wrestlers and karate guys, the same thing that he did to Owen Hart, that first iteration, and I was just like, oh, okay, like
I mean, but, I had that like epiphany, that moment where I was watching this and like saw myself just like imagining that I could produce a show like this, that like I could be a part of something bigger than myself and bring joy to other people. And I still believe that. I still believe that like anyone really could do anything. If they see if you see something that you want to do, it might not be an easy path to get there, but you just have to find, if you truly believe that it's something that you need to do in your soul and in your heart, then you just go for it. Do it in the right way. I believe that like, I know like Afterbuzz has taught me that like preparation meets opportunity, that if you prepare and you really like do your work and be diligent, then when the opportunity arises, like you'll be ready, and you just have to like believe in that process. And so I try to like be a self-learner and always continue to improve. and always learn more about myself. And like, even if it's a bad thing, even if it's like, oh man, that is not a good quality of of myself. How do I limit that a little bit? How do I reduce that a little bit? How do I focus on a more positive quality to just try to be a better person? And I feel like if you're a better person and you work hard, like things will come when it's the right time.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, you're almost kind of speaking to me directly because, I mean, it wasn't until like I think my late 20s and that I even like start like anything like mixed martial arts, training jujitsu.
Mhm.
It wasn't until like years after that, early to mid 30s, that I like, oh, let me just interview people and what have you. And I mean, it's been 4 years since, and actually, what came up on my Facebook memories. It was a promo, and this is just like the most like the 12-year-old me being like, "Hey, you did okay, kid." But I Tito Ortiz cut a promo at Survivor Series 2018 for me on Instagram.
Wow.
And so UFC Hall of Famer cuts a promo at a WWE pay per view, and yeah, he cuts it with me for his fight at the Forum with Chuck Liddell a week later. And I grew up in Inglewood for the most part. Graduated from Inglewood High. We had our commencement ceremony at the Forum.
Oh
So
wow.
again, yeah. So again, it was just like, oh, a UFC guy at a WWE event to promote a show that's happening in my former backyard. So it was just like, great.
Yeah, I mean, I was so sad to see. So I grew up in LA, and so born and raised, I'm a Valley girl. Grew up in the San Fernando Valley, and I was sad with everything going on in the world that that Wrestlemania was not in LA. It's moving again, so it just it's like, oh man, seeing that in LA is a big deal. And I mean, we're a sports city, and why not have like one of the biggest sports and entertainment brands in your city? So yeah, I mean, I feel like seeing those things happen in where you can like feel like you're relating to that moment is like that. And that's why it's so important when kids watch it at 8 years old, because you're influencing a kid at 8, and there are people that have watched it since they were, birthed. Some people have WrestleMania on when they're, having their child. So, so sometimes it's so ingrained in that person, and you just have to follow it, follow your passion.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, my firstborn son, his name is Owen, and my wife
Aww.
allowed that to happen. So, shout out to the wife.
Yes. Shout out to the wife. Good man, right there.
So, I mean, now, speaking of good man, I mean, Drake talks about starting from the bottom. Now we're here. I mean, your husband, theoretically speaking, started off as a hobo and becomes this maniacal genius.
Well, genius. He did unfortunately predict a global pandemic. Unfortunately, I am not making light of the situation at all. But it is very serious. But it was very, like, literally, he has been. I don't know if I should bring this up, but he's been really emotional about it because he's very upset that he plays this character that is so divisive and is kind of a bad person. He's a bad person. He's like this, he has a compound, and he brings out the kind of evil in people. And he's like, why is this character, like, why do I have to play this character now? And I feel like that is hard and then I feel like it's just hard for any kind of person or performer right now to like put on any type of, I guess you could say face to just try to help. Because like you're dealing with so many things emotionally, mentally, physically, of just trying to like get through just the day, but yeah, so he definitely like made a transition from, and that was like a tough transition because the Hobo had a huge fan base. Mm-hmm. The Hobo had like such a diehard fan base where, everyone just, he was such he like all the kids loved him, right? All the kids were totally like would embrace him. And then especially when he started the tag team with Jervis Cottonbelly, like that was huge. And that was like kind of a dream tag team. And they were they just like lit up the ring every time they came out. If you hear a bell, it's my cat. Sorry, she likes to hang. So she jumps up, I'll bring her on.
No, that's cool. Running from the cat, that's totally fine.
Yeah, she thinks really any video call is for her. That's yeah, she might join us. But yeah, so what were you saying? I forgot where I was. What were we talking about?
But you're basically saying about the hobo's kind of the beloved hobo and his partnership with Jervis Cottonbelly, and it would light the kids' faces up, and just it was a positive deal. And then he goes like super dark. I think I might have attended that first kind of iteration of like him revealing that Bane's character and in Port Hueneme, and yeah, it was different.
It is very different, and like he has a whole new look, and like that is one of the hardest things to do is when you have been someone for so long and been a character to switch it to something that's so different. And I feel like he's still, he might be mad I'm saying this, but I feel like it's just he is still struggling with it and trying to find like that voice. And I feel like this year just has been rough where everything got shut down obviously, and like how do you like how are you this horrible character in this time? So maybe there's a point, maybe something will happen where there's a turnaround again. I don't know if are you a fan of, you're from LA, right? Yeah, you're in LA. Yeah. Have you gone to Brian Kendrick's Wrestling Pro Wrestling?
Yes, I have.
And okay.
I've seen
have you seen the Hobo 90210?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so that's the only show. So that's an exclusive. So that's the only show as of right now that you can actually see the Hobo. What? Yeah. So he still does it, but it's Hobo 90210, I think, unless they switched it back to regular Hobo. I don't know. I don't remember. It's been a while. And a funny story is on their last Halloween episode. It's not really an episode, but they aired on Twitch. Their show. It's an episode. So he dressed up as Hobo Bacon or Hobo Bacon. I forget, King Bacon or something. Hobo something. A name with bacon. He dressed as a piece of bacon, and then I dressed as a donut. And we did not plan this. This is a little fun thing that happened. But he did this whole thing where he proposed to Princess Donut in front of everyone. But like, I did not know he was going to do it. So it was a full surprise. But the fact that we're so close and we're married, and I literally can understand what he wants and like what he's about to do, and like just by a look. And I was like, oh, he wants me to do something. I don't know what it is. And so he had this big proposal, and everyone popped so hard. Everyone was so excited. And because some people didn't know, I don't know. Some people didn't think we were actually married. And we were getting congratulatory messages for like weeks. Yeah.
Well, it was really funny. If you can pop a territory, that's cool too. And theoretically speaking, that would put you guys and position you guys as the theoretical Randy Savage and Miss Elizabeth of Wrestling Pro Wrestling.
That is like a dream. That is our dream. We have that conversation all the time.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Originally like the Hobo, and my character was the Hobette.
Yes.
And we literally wanted to have, kind of a similar love romance, an iconic romance,
I think it's brilliant, and there's so many layers. And again, for those watching that are fans of Brian Kendrick, Wrestling Pro Wrestling is probably the most Brian Kendrick thing that you could do, not being attached to the Brian Kendrick that you know from WWE.
Oh, it is. so if you could do anything as a wrestler and not have anyone judge you and not like your wildest dreams, anything you could think of that you wanted to try in some like wherever, that is what you go to Brian Kendrick's show. And I've never laughed so hard and just like been offended and laughed and like mortified all at the same time. And it just like, but it brings you joy. And it's like one of those things that like we've had some people come to the show that are fans and, kind of, behind the scenes, and they love it. And, it's just a small little show. I don't know, 50 people, 100 people, not even. And it just, and it's a show of the heart. Like everyone makes their stuff, makes their costumes and their gear. And these aren't just, you've seen it. Like this is not just gear. This is like full, there's like a Giraffadora. Have you seen it? Did you see Giraffadora?
Or the what is it? Was it the Ricotta Horseman or Ricardo Flair? That whole four horsemen.
Ricardo Flair. There's
Anderson.
Arn Anderson. Oh God, what's the third one? There's the Bell, baby, the little
Bluebell, right?
Yeah. And then oh my gosh, so many characters. Oh, there's the not the Yeti,
the dinosaur. I don't know what the name is, but yeah, it's like
no, it's not a dinosaur. It's the Loch Ness monster.
Loch Ness.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so it's like all these, and these are all, and it's just, this is like literally another husband-wife team makes all of those giant foam. I don't think they're paper mache. It's like foam. Like they carve it, and it's like they put it together. It's so incredible. So like there's a lot of love put into that show.
Yeah, or I mean, especially.
And I miss that show.
I don't know if it's love, but if you see Sean Black as Phil Cosby, not Bill.
Oh God. Oh yeah. If you want to, yeah. I saw that for the first time and was like, that was one of the moments where I was like, I don't know if I should like leave or be mortified or like be intrigued that it actually works.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was some things where I was like, oh, okay, that's that. So it's kind of like not necessarily for children all the time. Right. Depends on who arrives. But I would say, if it's it could be rated R, because then there's some other stuff that kind of gets a little out of hand. But it's a good like adult show if you're bringing, I hope it starts up in I don't know, when we're all done with this crazy thing happening right now.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, safety is paramount, but I mean, there are things that are kind of brimming with like, there might be a spark here. Obviously, yes. Championship Wrestling from Hollywood has resumed. Mm-hmm. There was actually a show out in, I believe it was Costa Mesa. It was Roy Engelbright, who usually does hybrid boxing and MMA cards, but mm-hmm. they did a lucha show, like literally drive in and what have you. I think that was about a month and a half ago.
Yeah, I've seen little drive-in wrestling shows, which, they've done, I love that drive-in movies have come back, because I love that. And they're doing, I don't know if you saw, Dodger Stadium is doing a holiday drive-in experience, which I was like, that's amazing. They should do it for, I was like, they should do it for a bunch of other places. And I was like, there's not a lot of drive-in areas to do that. But I think you have to get a little, like, this is like a producer's dream in the sense of you literally have to think outside the box in order to let people kind of forget all of the horrible stuff happening in the world for just a little bit. And I feel like that is somewhat a job of a producer, is to transport their audience or their fans to another place where they don't have to worry about anything for an hour or 2 hours or however long. And like, I take that really seriously, because it is all about storytelling and it's connecting with someone. And if you can give someone a little bit of hope that everything will be okay, like that's what I strive for. That we all will be okay if we are in this together and we we take care of each other.
That's it. Us taking care of each other, which again is the most pro wrestling thing that you could do is like, take care
Exactly.
of your adversary. It's a paradox that not just resides in, pro wrestling, but also in MMA. Like, of
Mm-hmm.
all the MMA fights that I've seen either on TV or live in person, my favorite part is when the final bell rings and everybody's like hugging and what
Yeah.
have you. We just saw it actually the last UFC with Anthony Burchank, who made his UFC return after 4 years out away from the UFC, and he
Wow.
fights his former teammate Gustavo Lopez, and yeah, they're throwing down or whatever. Literally the next day, they did like a what is it, like a charity Brazilian Jiu Jitsu
Mm-hmm.
tournament
Yeah.
to raise money, and they again, this went like this was like an all-out war, but again, two friends kind of like play it to the bone. But again, that's the thing. It seems so paradoxical, but you're kind of adversaries at war,
Yeah.
but you can take care of each other all throughout.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like, I don't know if you watched the World Series this year. I did. So I was, of course, right? But I felt like, the ending kind of like the whole thing with Justin Turner is a whole other issue, but I feel like what I saw in the field, there was like a higher level of like other team, like they were just watching out for each other, that like there was a camaraderie, like you would see them kind of banter back and forth. And like there's some years where you have that, but I feel like it was elevated this year where there was like a sportsmanship and a friendship and just like how important baseball and this sport was in this moment because it brought people together. And it didn't matter what team you were rooting for. We were just rooting for we're all like rooting for humanity right now. We're like, let's just root for the better and the good of humanity because it is still out there. It is still there. And that's what I'm focusing on. I'm trying to remain positive.
No, I love it, but even that is the job of the producer,
Mm-hmm.
which I love the fact that you challenge other producers or people that have a production oriented mindset. I mean, no, no more famously than Bret Hart, right? Bret Hart saw his matches like movies, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
and he began to execute such, right? So I love your kind of call to arms to other producers that might have that, and begin to create in spaces that normally would have been either passe or you know out of the box or what have you, but doing that. And I have to ask, like in terms of one of the things that I feel that is lacking, and maybe it was before your time as a fan, but like one of the things that the WWF pay per views used to do that really wanted, like the reason why I watched Sunday Night Heat before a pay per view before the Attitude Era or even the Free for All on what was it, like the TV Guide channel, was to see the sets. Like if you had Backlash and there was like these weird hook kind of arrangement things and whatever. And I think in terms of like WWE right now, that's one of the things that is lacking. That's why when they did the In Your House NXT show, it
Yeah.
was, I mean, it's stuff that they already have in the archive, right? And
Yeah.
it's
I
just
mean,
like a small tweak, and it just like it popped everyone. Or Halloween Havoc as well. Like it's
mhm.
just those things.
Yeah, they I'm speculating here, but I'm pretty sure for that NXT show, like they pulled stuff that they have in their storage unit. Like unless they went and like replicated it, but I doubt they spent the time to do that. So and the money. So like when I saw that, I was like, oh man, it like brought people back from when they were used to watch it. It like it transported you back to that time. And it was like a little um like it honored kind of that time, but like had an update, because you have new talent, you have, a new take on kind of where the wrestling industry is right now. And so I feel like, like I have, this kind of brings me back to this whole like Thunderdome thing, because I feel like that's like a digital set. It's kind of adding to the atmosphere of the shows that they have right now. Yeah, sorry, my cat is eating this plant. Hold on.
No worries.
Sorry, she's eating my plant.
Yeah, no, we can't have that
There,
because Peter would shut this
hi.
show down. Say, hey.
Yeah, she's eating the plant, and I can literally see her climbing into the dirt. So
Wow. Yeah, you don't want that to happen. That's not cool. That's,
it's live. You can't do anything about it.
this is true. But I mean, yeah, again, utilizing what you have, and
Yeah, you have
I
to like
think
think outside the box, and and some people like it, some people don't. I have mixed feelings about the having so many audience members in there. Sometimes I think it distracts from the action in the ring a little bit, but I think it gives all of these other industries, like all these tech industries who are trying, and all these technology companies that are trying to still do work, it gives them a business, and it gives them the ability to still like interact with fans and give these huge brands, because they're doing it across the sports industry. So it gives multiple sports the ability to interact with their fans, keep an audience, and have these small, digital companies still do this like incredible work.
No, absolutely. And again, it's like I always relate it to, tech, any tech, right? Or if you get a cell phone, right? The first generation is probably not going to be the
Yeah.
best, right? So getting it opening day or whatever, standing in line, it's all hyperbole, theoretically, because again, the thing could still blow up in your pocket or, kind of lose all your contacts or what have you, right?
Totally.
But when you look at the grand scheme of things, we're a hell of a lot further along than we were in the BlackBerry days, right? Those are the first apps, right? The first smartphones were like HTC Evos and what have you. And I mean, when you look at the broad scheme of things, it's just like, I mean, there's still got to be like R&D and everything, but we've come a long way. So I think whatever next form of it, whether that be safely testing fans or a different iteration of Thunderdome or a combination of both, which we're seeing on the NXT shows.
Yeah.
Like, whatever the final form of what we will know, what wrestling audiences look like, in terms of the live experience, we'll look back at this and be like, oh, this is how we got here. Like this is
exactly.
How we
and like
started
a lot of these, and a lot of these companies, like they do research and development all the time. Like it didn't just happen. Like they've been thinking about this for a really long time, and it and then they just sped it up a little bit because the absolute need for it was there. But I with the new like NXT looks like keeps uh, keeps going like above and beyond. Like they switched out. I forget the name of what the new center is. Do you remember? I'm totally blanking.
Yes. Wait, the Sean. Wait, it's the Capital Wrestling's.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So they keep updating things and keep making things look better and better, and like you have to keep doing that. And I mean, Raw and SmackDown's pretty set in like the way they, the way kind of the standard branding and stuff. But NXT is kind of that brand that can kind of mix things up, and they can have kind of that like Halloween Havoc and kind of totally. I feel like they're like the pro wrestling of the WWE brand, where they can really go and try things, and I love that brand.
Yeah, no,
Flobo and I covered it on AfterBuzz, so we
did deep dives, right?
Yeah, we would go really deep into those episodes and talk shop.
So I mean, and that's it. I love different iterations of talking shop, whether that be the Good Brothers PWWE doing it on MLW, whether it be what you guys are doing on Women's Wrestling Talk, whether it be George Hermosa and the Wrestling Chatter, or what we're doing now, right?
Yeah.
Different creators kind of looking. Most people are like, "Oh, do you have like competition or whatever?" And I'm like, "No, we're all friends, right?" And just like two wrestlers, right? Like Sammy, from what I hear, Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens are friends in real life,
Yeah.
right? But they're two different wrestlers with two different skill sets and
Mhm.
approaches. Even despite the fact that they're trained by the same trainer. Same thing with Chris Jericho and Lance Storm, right? So there's no, to me, I don't think there's any like competition theoretically speaking, because like everybody has a different way of seeing it, and that's what one of the things that I miss about like going to live events, right? Some shows they're like, have that gritty, rocky kind of like salt of the earth stuff. Some things will be like in a nice ballroom, production value to the umpteenth degree, but it's missing because again, whether it be pro wrestling, MMA, and jiu-jitsu, whatever promoter, they basically had their idea of what they wanted to present to the
Mhm.
fans, right? And again, those three iterations can have like, say you have like a Josh Barnett that can do pro wrestling, that can do MMA, that can do jiu-jitsu, right? But the way each promoter in each iteration is going to present him is going to be completely different. And that's one of the things that I miss is like seeing the way that other people kind of perceive a live event experience, and then, you know, basically, putting that into action. But the cool thing about it is, if not for this time, women's, WWT wouldn't exist the way it has. Neither would Wrestling Chatter and so many other content creators. So
Yeah.
again, it's like it's ebb and flow.
Yeah, and I think, this has been like a good time, I feel like, for me, and I don't know about you, but to just reflect on like what your priorities are and like put what you want to do first. And I mean, I feel like like switching from working from home, like you get burnt out and you get really, you know, stuck in a cycle where literally you just like get up and work and then go to sleep and there's no time for you. And I mean, that was true for me. And I feel like no matter what you do in life, like you have to make time for yourself. And I have to remind myself that every day. So whether it's like an hour to go to the gym, or you can't go to the gym, but do your workout at home, do your fitness routine, go take a walk around the block, read your favorite book, like turn off your phone. Like we do not need to have our phones attached to us anymore, you know? Find those things, like go bake cookies. By the way, I always talk about cookies because I love cookies. And that was my quarantine snack of, you know, the year. I was like, I always have to have cookies in my freezer, some cookie dough, because you never know when you need a warm cookie. What's your quarantine snack? I have to know. Is there like a snack
Everything,
that
seafood,
there's
everything I
not like
see, I
a
eat.
comfort snack that you were like, I need?
I mean, I'm all over the place because, like, maybe half American descendant of slaves with my dad, and then half Fijian with my mom. So, like, I get these weird, like, I know like the Fijian side kind of wins over when I'm like, oh, here's like a turkey sandwich, and I'm putting peanut butter on top of it and what have you, right? Or like, oh, I just might want fried chicken, like that. Those things have all kind of come into play. So, I mean, I think if there has been a food that has been
Mhm.
comforting, it's been DoorDash.
DoorDash. That's a company, not a food.
Okay, well, product placement. If you guys want
Is
to
there
like
is there
sponsor a
like a little
podcast, I'm just saying,
yeah? Is there
yeah.
like a restaurant near you that you love?
No, well, so I am in Atwater, right?
Okay.
So
There's some good
theoretically
like cafes
speaking,
and stuff.
there's brilliant ones, right? But I mean, part of the ambiance is like having
Sitting there and
whatever
going. Yeah,
in Atwater,
I
right?
know.
So
It's a
when
great little area.
yeah, so the theoretically, I mean, it's weird, right? Because like, yes, I kind of want to go and whatever and chance it by sitting in the middle of the road, enjoying my favorite meal, but then breathing in exhaust fume at close quarters.
That's my
But
favorite.
like, yeah, oh yeah, it's so good. I mean, nothing gets paired on. There isn't a better condiment than exhaust fume. Maybe
I
not.
mean, it's LA. You gotta get. That's just like part of it.
Yeah, yeah, but so to me, I think it's about experimentation, right? And same thing with this, right? So did absolutely nothing the first half of the quarantine, and then like July, I was on a couple of my friends' podcasts, and they're like, "Hey, why don't you use this StreamYard deal?" And
Mhm.
I give this is exactly how I do it. If you can do it better, fuck yeah, do it better, man. Because like we're all going to build and become benefit of whatever you figure
Yeah,
out,
I
right?
mean, we're all doing what we can do, and like there shouldn't be any judgment. Like as long as you're like not hurting people and
Yeah.
you're just like having fun, and you do you. Like just
No,
right.
absolutely. So, I mean, geez, since July, we're creeping in at 210 episodes.
Oh my god, that's a lot.
It's again the need to kind of figure this out and see what
Yeah.
other people are doing
Well, I feel
and
like it's also like the need to connect with people. Like I
yes,
felt that.
100%.
Where like I'm like, oh man, I need to call. Like I haven't talked to this person forever. I need to call this person. And like I still have my list of people. I mean, I'm slowly getting through it. But like even just like a text message to someone that like you haven't talked to in a while. Like I got a phone call from someone around my birthday, and they're like, "Hey, I haven't heard your voice in a while. I just wanted to check in on you." And it like made me cry because it's like someone thought about me in the midst of everything, and it just it like touches me because it's like you gotta it's like it's the good's there, it's there, so but I feel like I feel like what you're doing is awesome because you're connecting with people, and like that's why we're still doing women's wrestling talk, which used to be Women's Wrestling Weekly. So we like
Right.
transferred it from Afterbuzz, and kind of we're doing that because we want to still talk to people, because we still want to talk about women's wrestling. It's still happening and it's still a part of our lives. And we want to know how people are dealing with this. And there's a lot of people that have given us, some really honest conversations.
Which I
Yeah.
let's go get into it because I mean
Yeah.
previously had your co-host TK Trinidad
Mhm.
in obviously Sarah the Rebel. You guys are a trio. I mean
Mhm.
like a women's wrestling talk, like 6 woman tag team champions of the world in terms of it. And that's the way I'm gonna see it. You
All right.
guys
See
can't
it that way.
convince me.
See it that
Yeah,
way.
I'm just saying. You guys can't convince me otherwise. But I mean, how did that come about?
Yeah. So, I mean, funny story. So TK and I were doing it at AfterBuzz for a while, and the way I started AfterBuzz, I kind of won't go into it completely. But did TK tell that story on
Uh,
her?
I don't think so because I mean TK, it's she's doing so much.
Yeah, she's
I
doing a lot.
I can't. It was weird to me to say that like oh not to say like AfterBuzz like she didn't need, but it was almost like she would have got there eventually with or without AfterBuzz, and that's what I love the AfterBuzz
Mhm.
concept and what it did for all of you guys, whether it be you, George, Flo, Leslie Colon, like awesome, but also what you guys are doing, you know, not I guess after the buzz, after buzz, obviously that's kind of up in the air in terms of what they're doing. But like you
Yeah.
guys have all done your own thing, and I think they gave you an important platform to
Mhm.
do the thing. But
Yeah.
I seeing what everyone across the board is doing that was related to that channel that content creation society, like you guys would have got there, but like it gave you kind of it expedited the process.
Yeah, I mean, they gave us the foundation, like the little stepping stones. And a lot of the people at AfterBuzz come from like, a journalism background or a hosting background. Um, I oh, sorry,
No, go ahead, go ahead.
did you see that?
Yes, that was
God, sorry, she's like,
no, you're right.
oh my God. I
No
heard her
worries.
bell.
Yeah.
You should have warned me.
No, I'm sorry.
Um,
Well, I saw a shadow. Is what
yeah,
happened.
hold on, I gotta move my plant.
No, go ahead.
Hold on, I gotta move my
Go
plant.
for it. Go
Sorry,
for it. Go for it.
this is live TV, right?
Yeah, this is
I'm
this is
moving
what
the
we do
plant.
here at According to Woods. And again, this
I was trying to make it look like a cute little thing, and then, but she's gonna eat the plant. So, all right, well, I moved it.
No worries. But
Goodness.
So in terms of AfterBuzz, I mean, again, all of you guys are you content creators. I mean, it was a definitive platform, but like it's cool how you guys all kind of ventured off.
Yeah, so we did, TK. So I was doing it with TK for almost a year, and it was me and her doing all the interviews inside the studio. And in March, April, I think when everything shut down, we started doing it remotely, and then we did that for a few months, and then we had a lot of interviews kind of left kind of hanging, and we would plan things out pretty regularly, and we're like, all right, and then we took some time off, and we're like, all right, how do we want to do this? And so TK and I chatted, and we're like, let's try to launch it and do it in a different way. And we're still figuring out like all the nuts and bolts, and still launching it on your own is very different without having the support of a big studio. And then Sarah was originally on Women's Wrestling Weekly at AfterBuzz like years ago when it initially started, and so she was familiar with the platform. She helped with socials, she did all that. And so TK was like, hey, what if we bring Sarah on? And then like we all discussed, and then and then here we are.
I think it's amazing. And you guys have had some, I mean, Viva Van, you've had Quinn McKay from Ring of Honor. I mean, it's some notables. So you guys are bringing the heat.
We're trying, and we're actually doing a whole slew of interviews this weekend, actually, and those will be airing sporadically for like the rest of the year. So you should be really excited. We can't really share who they are, but there's some really awesome people. So,
well, that's why they have to share.
That's why you have to subscribe to Women's Wrestling Talk. Where you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Anchor, YouTube, all that jazz.
I think it's brilliant. I think it's absolutely brilliant. Now, I want to go into your production kind of je ne sais quoi, right? Because obviously production and wrestling, those are things that in your life have kind of meshed seamlessly, right? At least outwardly. So in terms of like what you feel is the best produced wrestling concept or product, right? Past or present.
Yeah.
Has there been anything that you're like, man, they did it right there? Like, and it doesn't have to be, it may be one particular show where they just hit on all cylinders, or maybe it's a string of shows, but I mean, what would that be for you?
I mean, I feel like the typical answer is going to be any WrestleMania. And I say this because I remember watching WrestleMania, but my first live WrestleMania, I literally wanted to cry all the time because I was so not only super excited and happy, and I like literally was beaming from ear to ear, but I just was blown away by the production, like obviously the production value, and just like the energy, like. I'm sure you've been to WrestleMania. Have you been to WrestleMania? No?
LA was going to be my first, and I wanted to kind of theoretically pop my WrestleMania cherry.
Oh my God. Okay. I literally get chills. And literally, I remember I sat in my first WrestleMania seat, and I was in the nosebleeds, but I was still super happy to be there. So you get to see the whole arena, you get to see the whole stadium, and you get to just feel the energy of the fans, right? And I'm like, trying to not cry. Brandon's like, what is happening? My friends are like, what is happening? I'm like, I just, I don't even remember what happened on the show. I just was like blown away, right? And I remember we went back to the hotel, and I literally all night and like the days leading after, I was envisioning myself being at WrestleMania one day as like a big producer or in some capacity, maybe like a like an on-air general manager or something, you know, making those moves, right? Making that stuff happen. But I like was envisioning it because I was like, I could do this. And then I cried again. Because when you like I can't explain it. It's just one of those things. I mean, I feel like that's the typical answer, but I feel like I had such a like an out of body experience when I experienced it for the first time.
Well, when you know, right? When
Yeah.
you know the first interview that I have ever done, like it probably wasn't the best. I mean, it's far from it. I mean, the first iteration of this podcast in July versus this one now.
Oh yeah, you've gone far.
Right.
Oh man, if you found my first Afterbuzz interview, you would be like, "What is this girl doing? Like awful," you know. And sometimes I still look at stuff and I'm like, "Oh, that was pretty bad," and that's okay. Like no one's perfect. Like people stumble on TV all the time. Like you just saw my cat eat my plant. Like it happens. You know, like we're all people. What I was gonna say, I also, I know this is random, but I feel like I went to a Taylor Swift concert too, and Taylor Swift had during her Reputation concert back in the day, which feels like forever ago. She has an incredible set design, and if so, like I would go on YouTube and look at like how it was designed, and I feel like for any live event, that was like an incredible, like I know it was a non-wrestling example, but it's kind of an incredible example of what you can do with transforming a space.
Yeah, no, I like it. I like it. I mean, I kind of have one too in terms of like Limp Bizkit at the Forum for Family Values. This probably was like 99, 2000. But I mean, they had this weird deal where it almost looked, the stage, it almost looked like the Megazord from Power Rangers. Like
yeah. Yeah.
And like, you know, the John Otto, the drummer, was like inside the chest playing, and then DJ Lethal was like on the shoulder and everything like that. But like, I was like, that could work theoretically for a wrestling show.
Yeah, I mean, so like I think that the Reputation set had like you could see through the set. She came through and had huge, like 200 feet door. Like I don't even know how many feet, but huge. It's at a huge stadium, so like she walks through and then she has levels where the band it's see through, so they're on different levels, and then there's projection mapping all over the place, and yeah, it's incredible. So like I would take a second look at that. But that like Wrestlemania is like the top of the top, right? But I feel like when NXT does takeovers, they do a really great job about bringing like kind of a mini version of Wrestlemania to takeover, and they do a great job, like just from a production value. And like I've had a lot of people say that sometimes takeover is better than some of the normal pay-per-views. So, you know, and it's all of the elements put together, like the storylines, the talent, the sequence of when the matches happen, you know, all of that together brings it.
Can't teach that. It's something, and even the seamless integration of where they're at. Like Takeover Brooklyn feels different than Takeover Portland or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, my goodness, it's been such a long journey for you. But obviously, there have been people that have inspired and helped you along the way. So I definitely want you to get some shout outs out of the way in terms of people that have helped you along your career.
Oh my God, you're gonna make me cry. Well, my career's still happening. I feel like it's like it's still things are still happening. I feel like my number one person would be my husband, because he's like my number one cheerleader. You know, my little Robert Baines. You can follow him on Twitter too, because we're in this together. Like I feel like we're always like, sometimes we try to always be hand in hand, but sometimes like he gives me a kick and I like push him forward a little bit. We you gotta have a little tough love sometimes. And I would say like anyone like from the United Wrestling Network that gave me a chance, you know, they gave me a chance like interviewing backstage for Arizona. And, and even like working with Primetime Live, they've given me a chance in different capacities to work there. And I would say anyone at Afterbuzz, like I've had, like, there's the whole wrestling crew at Afterbuzz that, Flobo has been like the main man, so, like, supporting me on all my NXT stuff. He like gave me a chance. He supported me when I was like trying to host for the first time. All those producers, like everyone, like there's so many. I mean, it's too many people to count. Like I had some former great bosses that like gave me good advice and helped push me and helped me work on stuff that like got me Emmy nomination. And, there's so many things that like, I don't know, so many people, and it's anyone that like gave me a chance, and like believed in me.
Well, I think it's brilliant, and I think you're absolutely brilliant.
And TK for not running away.
Yeah.
TK, because TK literally was terrified of me when she met me for the first time, because I just showed up at Afterbuzz. That was the story I was going to tell you.
Oh, go ahead.
Literally. Oh, okay. Sorry. My husband's here and he wants me to explain this story.
Oh, yes, please.
Because
Robert Baines.
It's his fault. Thank you, Robert Baines. This is his evil plan. Because I like told him, I said, hey, like NXT is moving to off like the network and going to TV, so I want to cover it, and I was like, I miss talking about, like, we would talk about it, but I want to talk about it for other people, right? And I said, hey, what about Afterbuzz? And I like threw it out there, and he's like, well, I don't know what's happening at Afterbuzz, because he like stopped doing it for a while because he got too busy. So he's like, I don't know. So he messaged TK and said, hey, I have someone that could help with the NXT panel. And that was the summary, he was a longer message, but that was the summary. But he didn't say who it was. He just said, I have someone that wants to help and be on the panel. He didn't say it was me or his wife or anything. And it would have made it so much easier. But he didn't do that because he said he wanted me to work for it. So I was like, okay, I'm going to show up at the studio on NXT Day, which is not so great. You can't just show up at a studio. But I did anyway, right? And I showed up, and people went and got TK, and they were like, oh, someone is here for you. And TK was like, I have no idea who's here for me. So I introduced myself, but I thought she knew who I was. It was the most awkward interaction. And I met Flobo, and I think Jack Farmer was still on the podcast at that time, and then TK. So it was the three of them, I believe. And we sat and we watched NXT. So we watched like the 2-hour NXT, and then I sat and watched them do their review. And midway through watching the show, George Hermosa comes up and says, like, runs over to me because I would see him all the time at Wrestling Pro Wrestling and like all over, right? And he was like, Emily, you're Hobo's wife. And he comes over and gives me a big hug. And everyone knows the Hobo at Afterbuzz. And TK turned to me and said, you're married to the Hobo? That would have made things so much easier. And literally, she was literally giving me like the dark, like the fire eyes. Like, she was giving me so much heat the whole time. She was like, who is this chick showing up to the studio? Just showing up randomly, trying to get on a podcast.
Well, I mean, you got to work for it. Yeah, I mean, you got to pay your dues, kid. I'm just saying, right?
She was like, and then I talked to her afterward and said, hey, I want to be a part of the wrestling crew at Afterbuzz. And she's like, well, there's like an application process and there's like all this stuff. And she's like, well, I kind of need help with women's wrestling. I don't have anyone to do it. Do you want to help with that? We start next week. And I'm like, sure.
Why the hell not, right?
And that's the beginning of our love story.
Oh, I guess it's a love story. You could just...
No, but then like I officially did all the training and I did all that. But it was kind of like after. like 3 months or something.
Well, I mean that's Taylor Swift AF, right? It's a love story. Baby, just say yes, right?
Exactly. You just have to say yes. And that's my lesson to you all, is sometimes you just have to say yes.
There you go. There you go.
And show up. Just show up.
Just show up.
Show up is half the battle.
Here you go. That's like a G.I. Joe, like showing up is half the battle. G.I.
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
just did something in my head. Like, my goodness. But I mean, thank you for setting the time to kind of speak with us.
Oh yeah, this was awesome.
Yeah, you're awesome, man.
You're awesome.
Aw, yeah. I'll keep it. No,
Just
but,
take it. Just take it.
Yeah, take it. Right on. But I mean, obviously, to get the positivity that is on Emily Mae, where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, you can. If you want all the positivity in the world, if you want some awesome wrestling, if you want some baking cookies recipes, if you want some holiday cheer coming up, because we're all gonna need it. And if you want, I'm trying to think what else I could provide. Lots of sports and entertainment commentary and fun wrestling facts. You can follow me at Emily Mae Heller, so that's MAE, and on all social platforms. So Twitter, Instagram, that's it. Facebook, you won't find me.
You're like John Cena.
Yeah, you won't see me. And then what was I gonna say? Oh, you should watch Primetime Live on Tuesdays at 6:00, and you don't want to miss it. We got some awesome stuff happening. And you should also watch Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. I'm going to plug that show as well.
Mm-hmm.
You should,
all on Fight. All on Fight, people.
All on Fight TV. Easy to find. FITE. Fight. You can also, you have to subscribe to Women's Wrestling Talk on Twitter and Instagram. We do a Instagram StreamYard live news thing on Thursdays, and we're gonna have Leslie from Afterbuzz come on. No, not Leslie. She was last week. Alyssa Marino, who's commentary for Primetime Live. She's gonna be back with us on Thursdays. This Thursday, so tomorrow. And then I'm trying to plug all my stuff.
Yeah, plug away.
Wait, what?
Anchor.
Oh, Anchor. Yes, Anchor. I have my reminder over here. Anchor. So find our podcast on Anchor. And, we are doing everything out of pocket right now. So if there's anything that you can give, if you can, just, subscribe to our Anchor and give a little love every month. I know it's a hard time right now. So anything you can do would be very appreciative.
And I love it. And I really appreciate you for coming on again. Yeah. It's somebody that we've got a lot of mutual friends, and hey, I wonder if she would just shot in the dark. Ozzy Osbourne the hell out of this shit. It's
no, and I'm just me. So anytime you want me to come on, we could chat about anything. So.
Oh man, I'm gonna take you up on that.
All right, happy to do it.
Absolutely. But thank you, Em, for joining us here at According to Woods. Thank you guys for joining us here. And if you guys haven't already done so, we warmly encourage you to share, and subscribe According to Woods on both YouTube and Facebook. You're subscribed, right?
Yeah. Am I subscribed?
Yeah.
Yes, I believe so. I have to double check. Oh no, I'm going to double check after this.
Okay. Well, she'll do it. I'm definitely subscribed because it's my channel. But
I hope so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that like an Inception thing where you're if you're subscribed to the?
Well, I might have a dummy account, because any account that I have is practically a dummy account because it's run by me. But I digress.
But everyone subscribe! Everyone subscribe!
Absolutely. But don't take our word for it. Here's a pro wrestler, Zeta Zhang.
Hey, this is Zeta Zhang. Make sure you subscribe to